Imagine you are a Hollywood studio boss.
You're in your big corner office with a view of the Hollywood sign.
You have 4 assistants.
Your assistants have assistants.
And everyone in town is buzzing that biblical epics are back.
So you bring in your favorite screenwriting team,
Sal
and Nina Litvak.
And we've got a fresh take on the sword-and-sandals spectacular.
Think 10 Commandments meets Dumb and Dumber.
Working title?
Shnooks at Sinai.
When the movie opens, we're in Egypt, and we're going to be following 2 Hebrew slaves.
Zev and Shimmy.
They're cousins. They're both grandchildren of Puva.
Puva, you may or may not remember from the Bible, he is the son of Issachar.
Issachar is one of the 12 tribes of Israel, one of the 12 sons of Jacob. When the Jews arrived in Israel, everything was good. After a while, they became enslaved, and that's how they are now. Now, these are not slaves the way you're used to thinking about slaves, which is they're all out there in the hot sun making bricks and building pyramids. Zev works indoors. House slave. You might think, oh, house slave, that sounds pretty good. It's not.
There's no good job when you're a slave. So Zev, let's just take a second to describe the kind of guy Zev is. Okay? Imagine like an Israeli IDF veteran. He's tough. He's kind of serious. He doesn't show a lot of emotion. And he basically thinks he's right and everybody's wrong in every situation.
He's kind of skeptical about everything.
He's a cynic.
And he's also big, strong, muscular guy. Why is he
very
muscular?
Very big arm muscles because of what he does all day long.
He is a fanner.
He stands and holds a fan, and the people he fans are a bunch of spoiled Egyptian teenage princesses. They're snotty, they're ungrateful, they're rude, and all day long he has to make sure they're feeling a nice, comfortable breeze.
Yeah, they don't even see him. He's just the air conditioning system to them. And what makes it even worse is they're very rich. This is a very rich family. In fact, what these people are, you can think of them as the Anheisers of Egypt. It's a beer-making family.
Beer mogul.
So this is the mansion in a plantation that grows the grain and manufactures the beer. And in this massive mansion, here's Zev fanning all day long. Nobody appreciates him.
He's got a lousy job, but it could be worse. He could be the guy standing in that part of the room who's the insect repellent, or rather, the insect attractor. This is a guy who's totally naked and covered in honey, and his purpose is to divert the bugs from the beautiful Egyptian teenage girls.
And even worse for Zev, they eat great food all
the world's
day long.
delicacies.
Imagine you're on a cruise every day of your life. That's how the Egyptians eat. Zev just gets some gruel for breakfast.
He can smell it, and he just can't taste it.
Some gruel for dinner, but he cannot eat that food that is being eaten in front of him all day long.
Meanwhile, cousin Shimmy works on the same beer plantation. He's got maybe an even worse job.
Definitely worse.
You may be familiar with old pictures of people stomping grapes with their feet.
It's kind of a romantic idea in Italy. The way they make wine is to stomp the grapes.
It's not so romantic on a beer plantation in Egypt.
They also use their feet. But what it looks like is 3,000 Hebrew slaves standing in enormous long troughs.
It's smelly, it's viscous, and they're just all day long stomping.
Their job is to macerate.
They're up to their knees in beer
gruel. Yeah. And their job is to macerate this fermenting beer gruel. And what that means is that the stuff that they're walking in all day long and stomping is fermenting at that moment, and the fumes are rising.
Shimmy is very proud of himself that even though he's making beer all day, he never partakes.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard. Beer disgusts him now, but what he doesn't realize...
The fumes that he inhales all day long ensures that he's actually got a buzz on pretty much all
the time. He and the other 3,000 beer-mushing slaves are basically high all the time.
Not the sharpest knives, let's put it that way.
They're not so sharp, and they're pretty docile. Okay, that's the situation when we meet Zev and Shimmy. After work one day, after their 15-hour workday, when they can go to the slave quarters and take a rest...
Shimmy comes running over to Zev.
He's got big news! Big news! Zev, you'll never guess what I just heard.
Do you remember that guy Moses the Jew that grew up in the palace and then he killed an Egyptian and he had to leave, he's back.
He's back
And
after
wait till you hear
decades. And what did he say? He says, Zeb, and he is going to go with his brother Aaron to Pharaoh.
All the way to Pharaoh.
And he's gonna say, let my people go. This is it. It's the end. Slavery's gonna end.
Shimmy is so excited that, number one, slavery's about to end, and number two, he actually has a piece of news before Zev.
Zev's answer, yeah, I have heard all of this. Let me tell you what actually has happened. Not only is Moses back and with his brother going to Pharaoh, they already went to Pharaoh. They asked for the slaves to be let go.
And the answer was a big, fat no way.
Not just no way, not just no, but in fact, Pharaoh says, you people obviously have a lot of time on your hands. You need to work harder.
I'm going to double down on you.
So the slaves that are working out in the fields making bricks and building pyramids, they have to produce the same number of bricks, but also gather the straw that was previously given to them. And, Zev says, lest you think, Shimmy, that only they are going to have to work harder who are doing that and not getting the straw.
Things are going to get a whole lot worse for us, too.
There is a new announcement for all slaves in Egypt.
No days off.
No more Shabbat. You see, the slaves did have a day off. And that day was very important to them because back then the tradition, the Shabbat tradition, was to read these secret scrolls that were passed around.
Ancient scrolls that they had taken in with them to Egypt.
210 years before.
And the scrolls were filled with prophecies about their one-day redemption.
That they would be enslaved. That came true. And it also said in the scrolls that they would be redeemed after 400 years.
So every seventh day it gave them great hope and comfort to read the ancient scrolls of their people.
And now
no more.
That is over. Now, I want to mention one other thing that annoys Zev no end. He's willing to put up with this slavery and just muscle on through because he knows eventually his grandchildren or their children are going to be released from slavery after the 400 years. But there are some Jews that are already out. They're already out of slavery. And as a matter of fact, there's some distant cousins of Zev and Shimmy who have taken this path. What is that path? Give up being a Jew. Don't circumcise your children.
Right into the Egyptians.
Stop speaking
adopt their
Hebrew.
Culture, adopt their customs.
Don't have Hebrew names and just be one of them. And to prove that you are one of them, you become a slave owner yourself. And as a matter of fact, the mansion down the street next door to the beer plantation is one such family of former Jews, now Egyptian slave owners. So they get to keep their days off, but not us, Shimmy. Things change pretty soon when every glass of water in the house, every koi pond, every bathtub, the
any body of water from a drop of water to the river Nile turns into blood.
For us, let me tell you. The next thing that happens, frogs.
Everywhere, frogs jumping here, jumping there, in and out. The whole country is covered in frogs.
In the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the field, in the house, it's everywhere.
And again, Shimmy says to Zev, it's a miracle. Look what's happening. God is bringing these frogs to rescue us.
You think that if God is coming to rescue us from slavery in Egypt, he's sending frogs? It's ridiculous. Gnats, cattle disease, wild beasts storming everywhere. Shimmy says,
it's a miracle. Look, how can you deny it now?
It's not a miracle. Now I understand what is happening. When you look at all of the garbage that comes out of this beer manufacturing place, where does it go? Where does all the toxic waste go? It goes right down to the river. These Egyptians, they don't care about nature, and now nature is getting back at them. What's happening here, these plagues, it's an environmental disaster. That's what's happening here.
And then comes boils and hail.
And locusts.
A swarm of locusts. And Shimmy says, Zev, can you deny it now? All the other Jews are getting ready. People are packing. People are celebrating. It's really happening. Do you want to be the only one that's not on board?
Yes, exactly. All of these Jews, they're suckers. They think that this thing is happening. Now they're going to leave. Maybe this is a test from Pharaoh. I don't know where these Jews are going to end up. Maybe dead, maybe in prison. But I see what's happening now. There's going to be very good jobs opening up. A lot of positions available higher than me. And I'm going to get my dream job. I'm going to be a food taster. I'm going to eat all that food that the master never lets me eat. This is going to be a good opportunity for me. And then everything goes dark.
The ninth plague, complete darkness.
But the Jews can light a candle and see what's going on.
And if they light a candle right in front of the Egyptians still can't see a thing. It's so pitch black that they're paralyzed. If they're standing, they can't sit. If they're sitting, they can't stand. They can't move at all. It's this thick blackness.
The Egyptians are blind. And Zev says, okay, I see what's happening now. This is my chance. Every day I see the money coming in for the beer. This is the biggest beer operation in the world. You know how much money they come in here? And it all goes into that room.
That mysterious room.
And
the door's
nothing
always
comes
locked.
out. There must be so much treasure in this room. I'm going to go check this out. Now, while Zev goes to check out that treasure, Shimmy disappears for a while.
And when Shimmy comes back, he's pale. He's in shock. He looks like he's seen a ghost. He says, Zev, they're all dead.
Who's dead?
They're all dead. All of the assimilated Jews, all the Jews that live, and the slave-owning Jews who live in the plantation next door, they are just dropped dead. During the plague of darkness, all of those un-Jewish Jews died.
And now even Zev can see that a plague that makes Egyptians blind, but Jews can see, and assimilated Jews are dead. This is no trick. This is no test. It's happening. They're getting out.
So finally, Zev is on board. He's like, okay, let's go. Let's hurry up. Everybody's ahead of us now. We need to start collecting stuff. We need treasure. We need weapons. We need water.
And all the other Jews have been preparing. They're much more ready to leave when the 10th plague hits. The slaying of the firstborn. In one night, every home in Egypt loses the firstborn child. A wail goes up over this country like has never been heard.
The land of Egypt, the Egyptians are brought to their knees, like no plague before.
And they don't even care what Pharaoh says anymore. They say to the Jews, get out! Go!
Can't get out of here fast enough. Go, and take whatever you want with you.
They acknowledge, they understand that the reason why these plagues are happening is because these Jews have been enslaved. They even say, let us pay you, we'll compensate you.
Take all of our treasure.
Take our treasure, just
stuff.
Get out. And Zev is lighting up the treasure from that big room. Okay, we need a big wagon. So he and Shimmy organize a big wagon. They go in there, they load all the treasure into that wagon. And he says, what else do we need? We need water, we need blankets, we need some kind of protection.
We need Saba Puva's skins.
The Saba Puva skins.
Saba Puva was their grandfather, the son of Issachar. He was a little bit of a eccentric kind of a guy who always had big ideas that never went anywhere.
While they were living in Egypt, he remembers coming into Egypt, right? His father was one of the brothers of Joseph. They all arrived in Egypt. Puva was young. And at that time, Bedouins would come into Egypt and they would trade things. And one time a Bedouin came in with this flock of goats, but not really goats.
They were like animals nobody had ever seen.
These
they
odd
had weird
little
patterns,
creatures.
Weird colors. They made
And
strange
Puva
sounds.
thought, ooh, this is an opportunity.
A petting zoo. Kids are going to love this.
There's such strange animals. There's such strange colors I haven't seen like that before. We'll make a petting zoo. They'll be fantastic. But what he didn't take into account is that they bit children and they smelled terrible. They smelled terrible.
So the petting zoo didn't really work out.
But Puva said, no, I know this is special. And so these skins of these animals, they're going to make rugs. I'm going to make rugs out of them. We're going to make a big business. And so he would wait for them to die. They didn't reproduce. They were like mules. There was a limited number of these animals. And each time they would die, he would get the skin, make a rug out of it. And he thought he was going to make a big profit with the rugs. But Bedouins like rugs. Egyptians don't like rugs. They like their shiny floors. And so it went nowhere. And these rugs were actually kind of stinky.
It became a joke in the family. And everybody, Puva's wife and his kids
Get
and his
rid of
grandchildren
them.
and his siblings. Get rid of these smelly things already.
But Puva kept his rugs. He put them in his shed out back. The shed started to stink. And so
Nobody went near
even
the
when
shed.
the Hebrews became enslaved and lost all of their possessions, there really was no Egyptian that was interested in the shed of Saba Puva's rugs. And so there
Shimei
they
said,
remain.
we're leaving Egypt. We have to take Saba Puva's rugs.
What
with
are we
us."
going to do
He
with Saba
shared them
Puva's
with
rugs?
so
It's
many years. He
Ah.
said something would come of them. They would finally be worth something.
Okay, you know what? Get 4 of Saba Puva's rugs with so much treasure in this wagon. Not everybody got
these
such a
other
treasure
Hebrews
like
are going to
this.
come and steal it out from under our nose.
They're going to steal. The other Jews are going to steal this treasure from us. We'll cover it with Saba
Cover
Puva's
it with
rugs.
the
Good
rugs.
idea. Go cover it up. I'm going to get water. I need weapons. I need food for the desert. We need some kind of mosquito bug stuff.
So
anything.
Shimei goes over to the smelly old shed and he starts pulling out the rugs.
He puts 4 rugs on top, and then he sees that huge pile of rugs in the shed, and he just can't bear to
His
leave them
grandfather
behind.
meant so much to him. And what are they really going to do with so much treasure out in the desert?
What are they going to do? He takes some treasure out.
Put
He
some
puts a
more
rug
rugs
in. There's still so many rugs left. Some kids come by and take that treasure and says, it's just treasure. What are we going to do with it out in the desert? I'm taking the rugs. And he makes a decision, and he fills that wagon with Saba Puva's
every
rugs.
last rug.
Doesn't mention it to Zev. Okay. Everyone is moving out. The Jews are on the road out of Egypt.
Now, we're talking about 2 million people. So
As
as they're on their way out,
Yeah.
it is a parade 10 miles long.
10 miles long. You got to get that picture. When 2 million people leave a place, the last person leaves hours and hours and hours after the first person leaves. They don't even cross the starting line until 10 hours have gone
So
by.
Shimei and Zev are bringing up the rear, but they're part of the long line.
And somewhere up in the distance, 10 miles ahead, they can see there's a light. There's some kind of a light near the front of the procession.
And they know they're approaching the sea.
They don't know what it is.
They're approaching the
and
Red
Zev
Sea.
is thinking, I got to just guard the treasure in this wagon. This is a treasure that's going to make my family, our family, Shimei, rich for generations to come. The word comes up the chain. Stop. We're stopped. Why are we stopped? Because we have reached the sea. There's nowhere to go. And these guys in the back row, who were the last ones to get out of Egypt, have a front row seat to see
So what's coming after them. The Egyptians, who were so devastated the night of the slaying of the firstborn, now they've re-examined it and decided, well, they don't want their slaves to live.
Pharaoh has sent an army of chariots and they're
Chasing
charging
after
in.
the Jews.
And Zev says, okay, if this is the way I'm going to go down, I'm going to go
Luckily,
down
I have my
fighting.
spear.
He's got a spear. This is a guy who was fanning all day long. He's strong. He's a warrior. He's ready to do battle. But before he can meet his first Egyptian in battle, that little light that was in the distance, way at the front of the parade, comes
flies
flying
over the crowd.
back over the crowd. And as it gets closer, you see it's not some little light. It's a
pillar.
massive pillar of
fire.
fire with dark clouds surrounding, and this whole thing comes down between them, the Jews, this 10 mile long parade of 2 million Jews and an advancing army of chariots.
And the Egyptians
Boom.
throw spears and they throw arrows.
And catapult rocks, and all those things just are suspended in the
it's
air.
like there's a force field around the fire and everything just is stuck there. Nothing hits the Jews.
And Shimei,
Shimei does something unbelievable.
he walks toward the fire.
He's like a child.
Shimei, what are you doing? Are you high? Are you still high from the beer fumes? Get away from the fire.
But Shimei, like a wide-eyed child, puts his hand up to the fire, touches the fire. And Zeb says, what are you doing? You're touching the fire. You're going to get burned. Shimei says, it's not hot. It's barely even warm.
And when he puts his hand in it, it's like there's a change that comes over Shimei. He gets so calm.
So serene. And he actually sits down right there with his hand in the fire and just sits there all night, meditating.
The word comes. We're moving out. The 2 million move forward. Forward? I thought we were at the sea. They don't even understand what's happening until hours later when the back of the parade reaches the sea, or what was the sea. Now we have this image often that when
the sea just opens.
And people
there's a
went
pathway.
down into the bottom of the sea. But that's actually not what our sages teach. What happened is that the road came up. The bottom of the sea came up and made a road across the top. And not just one road.
12, it was tunnels of water. And there was 12.
Yes, because
one
there were 12.
for each tribe.
Exactly. 12 roads across the surface.
And the people would go through the tunnels, and it was like a crystal tunnel. And they could see the people
Because
in the other tunnels.
Yes, there were walls of water. It was a wall of water on the right and the left of each tunnel. Crystal clear water.
And in the water, you could see fish and pomegranates would just float over. Anything you might want to eat.
If you're hungry, there's a piece of fruit right there that you could pull out of the wall of water, and streams of fresh water.
And if you're thirsty, people would take water. It wasn't salt water. It was
like
the sweetest, most delicious water they could ever imagine.
It was like a crystal shimmering palace that they were walking through, and everyone is just wide-eyed and amazed and drinking the fresh water. Zev, ever practical, is filling the water jugs with this really sweet water that he's never tasted anything like it before, dumping out the murky Egyptian water, getting this nice clean water, filling all his jugs. They get toward the end of the opposite shore. Remember, they're at the back, and again they see behind that pillar of fire disappeared, and the Egyptians charge in. They charge into the crystal palace. Zev and Shimei step forward. They get onto the shore. And then the entire crystal palace just collapses on the Egyptians.
Closes in, and it becomes a tempestuous sea once again.
And lest you think that the Egyptians were able to swim back or swim forward, all of their drowned bodies get coughed up on the shore, so that these Jews, these formerly enslaved Jews, will know now and forever they're never going to be enslaved in Egypt again. They're free. It's over. And they start dancing and singing and dancing.
And the women brought tambourines. They were so sure that they would be freed. And people are dancing and partying and celebrating.
And those rugs, those smelly old Sabapuva rugs that were just so gross when they were sitting and rotting in a shed for all those hundreds of years.
They're shimmering. They're glowing.
They're clean. It's like they got cleaned and purified during this walk through the sea, and they're kind of beautiful. And so Shimei says, Zev, don't you see? Isn't it great? Isn't it fantastic that we brought the rugs instead of the treasure? What did you say? No treasure? Zev cannot believe it.
Shimei says, what do we need treasure for? These are obviously special rugs that our grandpa saved for so many years.
And Shimei says it with so much confidence that even though Zev is furious and his blood is boiling, Shimei, without another thought, says, and watch the rugs, Zev. I'm going to go up front and meet Moses. Zev's like, For the once in his life, Zev is speechless. Shimei just works his way, shimmies through the crowd, as it were, and gets up there near Moses. Now the people walk away from the sea for 3 days until the water that they filled up at the sea runs out. They get to an oasis, thank God. Okay, they can drink, they're going to be okay.
But the problem is the water, it's so bitter. They can't drink it. It's
undrinkable,
nasty.
Murky, nasty water.
So people start freaking out. What are we going to do? There's no water to drink.
Shimei is right there when he sees
Moses, what Moses does.
Take a piece of wood,
regular piece of wood,
place it in the water, and it instantly all becomes clear and pristine, like the waters that they walked through in that crystal palace. It's all drinkable and sweet and beautiful. And now Shimei has seen firsthand what this man Moses is like. And he becomes so attached to Moses. He is a Moses man, as it were. The people move on. Things are going to be okay, but now they're running out of food. They're so hungry.
People are complaining again. What are we going to do? There's nothing to eat.
And Shimei is right there when Moses says, don't worry. There's going to be food for us.
It's just going to drop from the skies.
It's going to appear on the ground every morning like the dew.
And here it comes.
And it's called manna.
And it tastes like whatever the most delicious food you've ever had is.
And you can eat as much as you want. But if you gather more than you need, like Zev is trying to do, it rots. You can't have more than you need. Everything is just measured out precisely for the people. Shimei is walking around like, we are living in heaven. This is it. This is the real world. What we thought was happening in Egypt, That was a dream. This is the real world. And when they leave the oasis, and after they've been eating the manna for a few days, and they run out of water again, and the people start complaining, now what are we going to drink? There's no oasis out here. Shimei is not surprised that Moses takes his staff.
And a rock, just a regular rock.
A regular rock about this big, strikes it, and water starts pouring out of this rock. And we're not talking about a water fountain.
It is rivulets, it is streams, it is a huge bubbling fountain.
You ever see the fountains at Bellagio in Las Vegas? That's what it's like. Water's going everywhere, and it's a
water wonderland.
It actually makes canals of water through the encampment. And Zev, who hasn't seen Shimei in days, suddenly
what does he see? Shimei coming towards him in a canoe, heading down one of these waterways, and he doesn't even need a paddle because the water's moving, and it's moving right where he wants to go. Back to Shimei.
Sometimes this way, sometimes that way. They're like water roadways throughout the encampment. And Zev sees Shimei coming toward him, and Shimei's like, hey, isn't it wonderful? And Zev says, wonderful. Let me tell you, this is a dream. This is too good to be true.
One day we're going to wake up, and then where are we going to be?
And then where are we going to be? Shimei says, you got to have faith. Have faith in Moses. Everything is amazing. Just enjoy it, Zev. Enjoy it, because this is our new life. And this is the kind of encampment that moves through and arrives at a very special place, around a very not special seeming mountain.
It's a mountain. It's not the biggest mountain. It's not the most impressive mountain. And in fact, because it's a small and humble mountain, this was the one mountain nearby where idolaters did not go to the top to offer their sacrifices. Because it was just not an impressive enough mountain.
It was the Shnooks of mountains. And so everyone gathers around this mountain, Mount Sinai. Now it says in the book of Psalms that when the children of Israel reached this place, Mount Sinai, it says that the hills skipped like lambs.
What does that mean, the hills skipped like lambs?
If you've ever been in an earthquake, you would know that you can see the earth actually turn into liquid. The land is just rolling like this.
But it's not scary like an earthquake.
Now it's playful. It's
like a bouncy castle.
It's like being in a big bouncy castle.
It's fun. It's gentle.
And if you couldn't tell when you were in the Crystal Palace, and if you couldn't tell with
the water
wonderland, everyone can now tell that they are in the very palm of the Creator of the world. And they have been brought here for a reason. Indeed, this is that moment in history, that we're approaching that moment in history for which the whole universe was created. This is that moment, and it's coming, and people just intuitively grasp, or maybe because it's been communicated to them from above, that they're here for a very special reason. They're going to enter into a covenant with the Creator of the world. They have been brought here to get into a deal.
And they're being offered a book of rules.
A book of rules, and they're going to have to follow these rules, and they don't know what the rules are yet, but they get that there's going to be rules for them to live by. There's a new life coming, and there's going to be rules.
And a whisper starts going through the camp, and it becomes louder. It becomes a chant. Everybody, 2 million people are saying the same thing.
We will do it, and then we'll understand it.
Na'aseh v'nishma.
We will do it, and then we'll learn understand it.
2 million people are all on the same page, except for one.
In this special environment where communication is so special, where the hills are dancing, and where the entire mountain, the Mount Sinai, has been sucked up into the sky and is perched over them, and will be dropped on them if they don't agree to this deal.
But they must all agree.
They must all agree, and
everyone
they all
is saying, except
one. They can tell that one person is holding out. They're looking around, and who is it?
2 million people look at that one guy.
2 million people look at that one guy, Zev. And Zev says, okay, so we will do, and then we will understand. I'm in. And that's the moment when it finally happens. The whole history of the world has been waiting for this. The moment when the creator of the world reveals himself and says, I am the Lord your God. When God's voice comes out at Sinai, the entire world heard it. But for the people who were just there at Mount Sinai,
For those 2 million people, it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming.
it was so
They couldn't
overwhelming that they thought their souls would fly out of their bodies. And so they say, stop, 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 stop. And when God says, and you shall have no other gods before me, they think they're just going to die. And they say, Moses, please stop. Just tell him to stop. And Moses says, okay, I'll receive the Torah and I'll pass it on to you. And they say, yes, you receive the Torah, you pass it on to us. Perfect.
So he's going to go to the top of Mount Sinai.
I'll be back
and
in
says,
40 days,
40
sends
days.
Moses. And the people say, okay. He's on the mountain.
40 days is a long time.
He's
They're
receiving the
they're
Torah.
waiting, they're counting the days.
And for the people like Shimei, who are so attached to Moses, it gets
It's a
harder and
long
harder
wait.
with each day. And then the 40th day comes.
No Moses.
They
He's
freak
not
out.
there. It's the 40th
Shimei-
day and he's not there.
Shimei and all the real Moses heads are completely in a panic. And we have a tradition that Satan in Hebrew, seizes this moment, seizes on their fear, puts an image out in people's minds that Moses is dead.
He's not coming back.
They're freaking out. What are we going to do? We're stuck out here. We have no one to communicate with it between us and God and to take care of everything. And there's some Egyptians who come with them and said, no problem.
We have a great idea.
In the palace, we had a way to deal with this. When we needed to talk to the gods, we make a gold calf. And the gold calf can do exactly what Moses does. He communicates
He can be the
between
intermediary.
He can be the intermediary. And so they
start
rush to make
building
this
the
golden calf.
And Shimei is right there.
And
part of the
thank
project.
God that Zev has those big muscles from being a fanner all
Zev
those
just
years.
instinctively knows this is not a good idea.
And he's a skeptic about this idea like he's a skeptic about everything. And he literally has to hold Shimei back from rushing toward that job. And Shimei's just trying to be part. He says, no, you don't do that. We don't do that. We're not going to be part of that. And thank God he did that. Because when Moses does come back...
Which is, as he said, after 40 days, but he just
counted wrong.
it a little differently.
Exactly. He said he meant 40 days from the first day, not from the moment that I left. He comes back on time. He finds a golden calf. He freaks out, drops those 10 commandments on their stone tablets, orders that his tribe, the Levites, will go in and take care of the situation. And in short, everybody who participated in building the golden calf and having an orgy around it and doing all the evil stuff that was involved with it gets killed. But not Shimei. When Moses returns, and he's going to have to go back up for another 40 days, get the second set of 10 commandments, but he's also gotten the instruction, the Torah, the book of rules. And in this book of rules is the blueprints for a structure.
A structure that they have to build. And there's such detailed instructions for every step of the way. And it's going to be the tabernacle.
The tabernacle in the wilderness. Indeed, there will be an object that can function as an intermediary between the children of Israel and their God. But it is according to God's instructions. And this tabernacle is very particular. There's exact instructions.
It has to be the right colors and it has to be the right material.
And we have to have crimson and scarlet and turquoise.
And everybody's organized. Everybody has a job to do.
And there's gold and silver and copper, and there's a menorah and a table of showbreads and an altar and a curtain. And there's just a very specific way to build
everything. And
everything
makes sense.
And there's a shopping list that goes out to the 2 million people. These are the materials that we need: the gold, the silver, the copper, the thread,
But
the wool, the sockets.
There's one thing that they don't understand.
One of the items on this list is tachash skins. And everybody
what
says,
the heck is a tachash?
Tachash?
Nobody ever heard of this word.
What's a tachash? What's a tachash skin?
It's a mystery.
And Zev looks at Shimei.
And Shimei looks at Zev.
Saba Puva's rugs. That's what they are.
They did have a purpose all along.
And they bring their wagon with these strange, multicolored,
And
beautiful
shimmering
skins.
rugs. And those are going to be the outside of the tabernacle.
And so
those are going to be what everybody sees.
When they look at the most important structure in the history of humankind, what they see is a covering made out of Saba Puva's rugs. And so, my friends, you see that no matter who you are,
may think you're just an anonymous schnook, but whoever you are,
if you have faith in your Creator,
and you have determination,
and you have respect for your ancestors
even
and their
your
traditions,
crazy old grandpa,
then you can be part of something epic.
Dee da 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 da, dee da.